that's their best opportunity. That has to be 3 points.
That has to be, yeah. That has to be W.
I hate to say it, but if they get a loss or a draw away at that Utah game, that's the season, I think. Welcome to the Vamos Morados podcast, your source for everything racing and Louisville City on the State of Louisville podcast network. I'm Zach.
And I'm Benton. We're back, finally.
We're back, and we waited for a 6-point weekend to come back from vacation.
Yeah, right. We kind of just disappeared, and I forgot to throw out something in the Twitter space. So if you're a subscriber and we're waiting for us, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
Zach went on vacation, then he got sick. I've been pretty busy too, so I'm sure I had some sort of conflicts. Anyway,
we picked a great time to come back, though.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the racing games that we missed.
Yeah, we skipped a rough patch for racing.
We're not going to talk about it, especially the Bay one. I got really upset about that. But
I think we're going to have to talk about the Bay one, though, because that figures pretty strongly into the.
I don't want to talk about the details of that one. That's what pissed me off. We're getting ahead of ourselves. So, 6-point weekend. Let's talk about the actual W's. We divided and conquered this week. I was on radio duty for Louisville City.
You were on the call, and I was at the racing game. So we're going to be pretty Zach heavy on the racing segment and Benton heavy on the Louisville City segment.
Good. So Zach, fill me in on what I missed with this 2-1 win over Angel City.
Let's say so. Angel City at home, 2-1 win. Beautiful weather. Like kind of exactly. What you want for a soccer game. Pretty mild temperature. Sunset looked really pretty for that whole first half. I think it was not a dominant win. They didn't they looked pretty shaky for the first portion of that game. They seemed to settle into the game as it went on. But my big takeaway is, unlike the racing we've seen earlier in this season, they were able to get a 2-1 lead and then hold on to it and see the win out, which is not what this team's been able to do in that situation earlier in this season. So and we were talking a bit before we recorded, statistically it was not exactly what you want to see from them, but as far as the intangibles go, like holding on to a win and securing it is like a big step for the team that has been missing this season. So like tactically, I didn't see anything like any huge departure that maybe think they made in the next set, but just as far as like mentality goes, I think it is, they've added, and both of the goal scorers were players they've recently added. They've added a lot of players with a lot of experience in the league and with a lot of success. And so, just from a mentality standpoint, the team looks like they know how to win games more than they have in the past, even if statistically, like I'm not seeing any huge departures jump off the page at me.
Yeah. Now, one question I do have on it. I know before we start recording, we can't help ourselves. We were talking about this game a little bit, and I pulled up and I saw the expected goal numbers, and I'm not so much worried about Angel City's 1.4, but more so I was pretty concerned by seeing just 0.4 for racing. So I'm not necessarily looking for you, I guess, to break down that number, but in terms of the whole match, like the eye test versus that number there, like how much do those jive? Like, is that like, do you feel like that's a fair representation, or is it one of those where they did a little better than what that number's making me feel?
I would say the eye test felt a little more even than those numbers. I think the 0.4 seems kind of low for racing because I feel like both of the situations they scored in were shots where I would think, just in general, unless you have a super advanced model that's taken into consideration like where defenders are placed, which most XG models are just using like where the shot's taken from, and that's it. And so I think both of the goals were probably lower in XG than I think they would have actually been if you had included like defender positioning and like the part of the game, because the first goal I'll just mention was beautiful. That's one of the best goal scoring sequences they've had all season for a header from the very top of the box, which is in most XG models, it's going to be a pretty low percentage shot.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like a low percentage shot when they were taking it because they like absolutely diced up the defense. There were I think 5 one-touch passes in a row. They just like were ping-ponging the ball up the middle of the field, and then it was a really pretty chip over a defender from Borges to Balser, who she beat the defenders and had like a wide open header with no one on her, and just sort of blooped the keeper who had come off her line I'm sure in a model that's probably like a point 0.1 or 0.01 or 0.1 XG shot or whatever, but that looked like a shot she would have made a decent percentage of the time if you replayed it.
But I guess I'm more so thinking like, did the better team win? Like the gap between what they scored and what they were kind of expected to score just gives me this vibes of like you play that match again and the result maybe is not the same.
Yeah, I didn't get that feeling in person. So I felt like Angel City definitely won the first 25 minutes or so. That I think Angel City came out strong. Louisville, it looked like they were getting their footing. They were not the strongest in that first portion of that first half. But I feel like that whole middle chunk of the game, from like when they scored in the 26th minute through really up until like the 80th minute, once we started to get kind of into garbage time, like just protect the win, they were in control. They were not getting a ton. Like they weren't pelting Los Angeles, but like Los Angeles wasn't really getting a lot of consistent good looks. They seemed to be in control of the game. They were getting the better looks in that. So I would say for that 60 minutes in the middle of the game there, they played like the better team and really controlled that game.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think they scored, let's see, Becky's goal was in the 68th minute. I think they had another sequence like 2 or 3 minutes before that they could have scored on. They had a couple good sequences. They didn't always get a shot out of them. Sometimes it's like they missed the last pass or whatever, but they were good attacking sequences.
Yeah.
Like
that stuff doesn't show up in this.
Goal felt like it was coming for a couple minutes before it happened.
Okay, good deal. Because I was going to be really concerned if it felt like they, snuck out a win.
Yeah, and then I would say they did well controlling the game and holding on to the win up until like the very, very end, like last 5 minutes or so, where it was just like everybody in the box. And I think Angel City had a couple quarter kicks, and it was like just weather the storm kind of squeaky butt time.
Yeah.
But up until that last couple minutes, I thought Racing did a good job controlling, limiting chances.
Now, what about the effort or the apparent effort from the team? Because that was one of my gripes with the Bay game, is that second half, like it just really didn't look like a team that was wanting to win or was all that invested. I don't know. It rubbed me really wrong. Did you get any sort of like anything like that at all from this one, or did it look like they were out there?
The effort looked a lot better in this game. I mean, specifically, I thought, we were a little bit critical of the trade, so eating crow on this one a little bit. I thought Becky looked really good in that second half. I mentioned that she scored the goal that gave them the lead, but had several sequences, like a couple really good counterattacks where she got behind the defense. I thought she actually had, right before she scored the goal, she had a sequence where I thought she was too unselfish and she beat the defender and then tried to like lay it back to someone at the top of the box for a shot. When I thought she had a really good shot from an angle if she had just taken it. And then when she scored, it was kind of the same sequence, but she took the shot rather than passing it, and that's how they scored. So, but a lot of good counterattacks. And we talked about so it was 17 shots for Angel City to 10 for Racing, but Racing had 6 shots on target to only 5 from Angel City. So I did feel like, I mean, the volume was higher for Angel City, but the shots were on average better quality shots for Racing.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that Becky's won me over pretty quickly. You know, in terms, going back to that Bay match that I saw, she was one of the very few players that didn't, make me mad. I wasn't really doubting what she was bringing to the table in that one.
Well, and I wanted to mention, I mean, Balser. I think we knew Balser was gonna come in and do good right away, but she has been everything we would have wanted so far. And then I think, was this the first game for Peterson? I'm pretty sure. And see, I missed while I was on vacation.
Yeah, that one, she just kind of snuck in. No, I think it's the second game. Let's see what.
I didn't know if she played in that Bay game or not. She she looked recall her coming solid. Like the back line, I didn't see any huge backline issues this game. That the worst sequence of the night was the sequence where Angel City scored in that first half, and that was a bad pass from Ersig that kicked that whole thing off. So that didn't really come from her. So I thought she looked like pretty solid back there. That seems to be a good pickup for the team.
Yeah,
she's playing at Houston, right?
Yeah. I couldn't find it. So she had 2 Racing matches under her belt, but I can't. I don't believe she came in the Bay one. I could be mistaken.
Might have been her first start. Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Maybe
that
might be
subbed on in the Bay game. But yeah, I didn't see any. Like I said, the only real defensive lapse was on where they gave up the goal in the first half, and that was just like a really, really bad pass out of the back line that got picked off. And then when the pass got picked off, they were screwed because it was like was like 4-on-3, giving it away right in your own half. Yeah.
So, I guess before I kind of ask a slightly bigger picture question, is there any other details of the match that you were wanting to touch on?
So I know we're all pretty distraught over losing Pickett. I will say it has allowed Aaron Wright to slide out to the outside back, which is a better position for her than center back, like she's been playing most of the season. I thought she had a solid game. So that's one highlight is I think the team, like, we've lost the crossing. I don't think anybody can really step up to fill that. Like the crosses in general, the team's gonna have to play through the middle moving forward, because I think just like playing it down the sideline and crossing it in with Pickett gone is just like not as viable of a strategy as it was before. But that said, I think she's really solid in defense out there. So I thought Wright had a good game, playing in sort of a more natural position for her.
Good. Now, I guess I'm curious, after seeing that performance and kind of knowing where they sit at the table, how much does that sway your optimism level? Where are you at in terms of they're making the playoffs? They're not, like,
it makes me even angrier about the Bay game because, like, we mentioned, like, that's a team that that's the team they're fighting for that last playoff spot with, and the best opportunity they had to make the playoffs for this whole last season was that game right there. So
they
I
were
do worry
fortunate
that's
it was
gonna
only
haunt them
1-0.
because they're sitting in a playoff spot right now with if that's a win. But yeah, so they're still in it. Like they're 3 points back. With how many games we have left?
1,
but
2,
yeah,
3,
so
4, 5, 6.
6 games left, 3 points back. So that's perfectly doable. They have to get results. They can't.
You say that so nonchalantly.
Yeah, what I just mean is like they're not going to be able to back their way in. Like they have to be closing out these games. They have to play. They have to probably have the best 6-game. Like they need like the best 5-game streak of the season in there, to like make it a foregone conclusion. I think with the amount of teams that are fighting for that last spot, they're not going to be able to just sort of coast in with a bunch of draws. They need like 4 wins to close the season out.
So to paint the picture, next up is at home against 5th place North Carolina. Following that, you're going away to 13th Utah. And then at home,
that's their best opportunity. That has to be 3 points.
That has to be, yeah. That has to be W.
I hate to say it, but if they get a loss or a draw away at that Utah game, that's the season, I think.
Yeah. We also have at home against 3rd place Kansas City, away to 2nd place Washington. Then you got 6th place Portland at home, and closing things out away to 12th place San Diego. So it's a little tougher than you want, but not like.
But there's also opportunities
in
there. It's not as hard of a finish as it could be. It's a pretty sort of middle of the road schedule to finish out on. And yeah, I mean, just looking at the table closer. So they're in 9th right now. They are 3 points behind Bay. Everybody but Seattle. Oh, I didn't notice Seattle hasn't played a game yet. So Seattle is actually 2 points behind them, but 1 fewer game played. So yeah, they could, like, Seattle could pass them. So they could be in 10th by next weekend, I think.
It looks like they play tomorrow night, which would be Monday the 16th. Ooh, at 10 p.m. So late.
I mean, Bay has 25 points, Chicago has 26 points, Portland has 27 points. So 8th, 7th, and 6th place are all sort of right there in catchable.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's
just points wise, like they are 5 points back on 6th place. The opportunity is there, but they've got to win, which they've struggled with this year.
Exactly.
So
that's the point I was just saying. It's contingent on the winning.
Impossible, but they got to get the wins.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is just contingent upon actually getting those wins, and that makes me uncomfortable. I'd love to be wrong, but
is Angel City, Chicago, and Bay, and Seattle. They all have a pretty solid goal differential lead on all of those. So they do have the first tiebreaker. If they wind up tied for 8th, most of the teams they're going to be competing against, they have the tiebreaker against. So that is something in their favor moving forward.
It's pretty narrow with Chicago. Theirs is only -2.
Chicago's only -2. Angel City's -10. I mean, Seattle's -9. So they're way up on Bay and Angel City and Seattle, and they've got like 2 goals on Chicago.
Yeah. So, well, it looks like they just got to start really stringing together some of these wins. And
it is weird that this team, like, no matter how many teams the league has, Racing is just like stuck at that 9th position. Whether the league has 10 teams or 14 teams, Racing seems to just want to be 9th place.
Yeah, and you got one brand new expansion team above you, which that feels bad. That's the only way to put it. It feels bad.
Well,
Still
like
time
that,
to change that though.
Yeah. But like I said, it's so tight in there that like 6th through 10th is kind of wide open right now. I think those teams can finish in just about any order. So
yeah, a lot of parity in the NWSL, and I guess that's kind of playing in Racing's favor right now. It's not like the USL where there's teams already have been eliminated. There's just kind of a large spread of points and results. Well, I really hope they can start stringing something together.
Great, but I feel better than I did last week because at least this week they did the thing that they've been unable to do, which is like they closed out a game. They got the 3 points rather than letting team come back and get a draw. So that's a positive. One also, they came back from down a goal too. We almost completely didn't mention that, but they gave up the first goal and came back and won, which is like generally pretty tough to do in soccer. So I don't know. I'm not feeling like Team of Destiny. They're going to make the playoffs right now, but I'm also like, that they got as good a shot as anybody. I feel like at this point, we'll see. Like you mentioned parity. So many of these games are so close that it could work out a lot of different ways. Like they could play about the same they've played and go on a run just kind of on a fluke. When everything's this tight, weird stuff happens.
Yeah. They've in regular season play, they've not had like consecutive wins yet. So I'm still kind of sitting in the doubtful column until I kind of see some concrete proof that this is a different team. This is a team that can 3 points, put them together.
I probably overstated it when I said they needed to win 4 of the 6. Realistically, probably if they win 3 of the 6 and get points out of the other 3, like 3 wins and 2 draws probably gets them in the playoffs. But like 5 draws is not going to do it.
Yeah, we're past the point where draws are an acceptable or good result.
Like if I had to pick a number, I would say winning 3 of the 6 and then getting points out of at least 2 of the other ones. Like 3 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss, it probably gets them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I could see that. And
I think anything less than that, it's going to be dicey.
Yeah, again, just based off the team history, that feels like an uphill battle.
And
but again,
that's gonna be tough to do.
It's a little bit. It's a different team than what we have had. So,
but theoretically,
I'm going to bank on that.
You could do that without winning 2 in a row. That's so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Man, that Bay game sucks though, because they'd be sitting so much better right now. Even with a draw there, like a draw there.
They didn't
still in a way better position.
They didn't deserve anything from that game. They are very fortunate it was just 1-0. That second half performance, like it was a slap in the face to everybody who stayed up for that late game. It was a West Coast kickoff. It was on the radio studio at 12:30. I had an energy drink, so it's not like I was tired and worried about that. But like, just think of these people after everything you've endured all season, like watching some of these results. And then do that in the second half.
While we're regretting things, they had the lead in that Seattle game and gave it up. And that didn't even – not only could they not hold on to the lead to get the win, they gave up 2 goals and turned a win into a loss. So, like, that's a 6-point swing right there against also a team that they're fighting for a playoff spot against. So
I try to be like –
the Seattle game, Bay game, like, really –
yeah. They're not good.
In the foot.
Not good. I try to be glass half full and see the optimistic side of things and try to be excited and motivated about the team. But like, man, there's just like, I'm not in that spot right now.
I think the story of this season is they have never played consistently bad enough to like fully take themselves out of it, but also have never played consistently good enough to like give them some space. They've just sort of hovered right on the line the whole season. Like they've never gone one way or the other. It's just like every time they had an opportunity to like move up and get some space, they haven't taken it. But then like every time it's looked like they were going to drop, they've gotten just enough results to keep right on the line the whole season, which is just like a nerve-wracking spot to be in all year.
I think I've made this analogy or comparison before in some capacity, but you saying that, it just screams like Andy Dalton or Marvin Lewis.
I knew the Bengals.
You knew where it's coming.
This
like
feels like
find mediocrity
like
and just like park the fucking bus there, you know? Like 20 years of that. I mean, Andy Dalton's a good guy, but like, and he did get the plastic stuff like that, but they fail. Oh, they fail. Like just enough where you don't fire him, you know?
Yeah. Just good. I could see it.
Now we have our golden god, Joe Burrow. We didn't win today, though. All right.
You want to talk about a team that did win?
I do. Yeah, because the Bengals didn't do it. This Tulsa game. First off, the storyline's heading into
tell me about it, because I was at the racing game, so I didn't get to see much of this one at all.
Yeah. Obviously,
statistically, like it looked like they played well, but I was kind of surprised by the scoreline.
It doesn't do the match justice.
Yeah. I was checking on my phone and I looked, and like near the end of the first half, they had 12 shots and no goals. And I was like, ooh.
No, it was. I mean, it was a result you should be happy about. Yeah, we didn't like absolutely murder them, but it was a good outing. There was definitely more positives than negatives. But first off, obviously the main storyline heading into it was that, normally this would not be really a very sexy matchup on paper, right? This is Tulsa, who's like fighting for their playoff life in a playoff field that's way too big to begin with. But you have Mario Sanchez, Alexis Swahi. You have two Sanchez kids on that team as well, plus Owen Dom, who's being loaned there. So there was like a lot of connection. And Luke Spencer, how could I forget him as the assistant? So, there's obviously a lot of familiarity there. It was Philip Goodrum's former team, and he got his first start for Louisville City against them.
On the flip side, we have Goodrum.
Yep. So there was this cool, like heavy amount of like overlap between the teams. Then you throw into the mix the fact that Louisville City's playing away from home in a baseball field. So you're talking crappy field, which was very much in the mix, and it's smaller too. So throwing a wrench in their game plan as well. But when the game started, like really, I'll just talk about the first half as a whole, like minus not bagging in more goals, like it was outstanding. I mean, they were in complete control that first half. Like Tulsa just had to bend to Louisville City's will the entire time. And I don't know if it was just me noticing it, or if the camera angles were kind of more like broad, like spectrum, but like I feel like I got a better view of the team's shape and movement like throughout. And it's just like they're everywhere at once, and they were just doing so good at covering ground, because anytime Tulsa had the ball, all they could really do is kind of kick it in their half, because they couldn't find an opening. And a few times they would dart through and find a few opportunities. But even when they did, I mean, Louisville City did a great job of making it very challenging and tough for them. They didn't particularly have anything that was too threatening in that match. Meanwhile,
Tulsa only had like 8 shots the whole game.
Yeah, and most of that came, I think, in the second half, because it was a different story in the second half. But it was great. Like
5 of them were second half.
You could have argued that that Louisville City should have scored more in the first half, but I mean they're creating dangerous opportunities, and that's like the big thing you can ask for there. We didn't get a Philip Goodrum goal against his former team, which I was kind of hoping for, but we did get a Jansen Wilson goal. I can't shut up about how like awesome of a storyline is and how cool it is to see him succeed. Oh yeah, easy. So Yeah,
We need to have him back on now that he's scored a bunch more since the last time we talked.
Yeah. Hey, Jansen, I run a Jansen Wilson fan account on Twitter. Thought you would want to come on our podcast so we can talk about it. No, but I mean, it's such a cool story. Like in the success that he's seeing this year, it's been awesome. But they looked great, and I think I said this on the broadcast is that when they went in the locker room, the one thing that Coach Cruz might get on them about was the finishing element. But you keep creating chances like they're doing that first half, like we'd bury them in the second half. But it was different in the second half though. Tulsa was more in the game, but at the same time, not really any more threatening. Like they had much more of a presence and control over things, but they really were not able to make a lot of it. And I think that's a real big testament to Louisville City's like defense and just like kind of positioning and gameplay. They really were able to kind of shut down Tulsa and manage them. The game did start to get more physical. Aiden McFadden went out with I think concussion-like symptoms. Have not gotten any updates on him. I'd have to imagine that he'd be precautionarily at least out for the next match, which is against Detroit. Purely me speculating. Yeah. I mean, we have the depth. Why not? Like, you don't want to risk it. Coach Cruz has already been pretty open about being sensitive of the head injuries.
Yeah, and also it's not like I mean it's probably the deepest position on the team, so there's no real rush to push him back in.
Yeah,
if he's not ready.
Yeah, so. you don't want to rush that. So,
Perez, his red card, is he available for the Detroit game? I forget how many games out that is.
So it's just one apparently in the USL. I thought he's universally 3. So I was mistaken with that one. So he did sub into the match. In fact, that's actually about next point I was getting to.
With him back, like Jansen Wilson can slide back into outside back, and so they're very deep in that position. I don't see it being a problem.
Not too worried about that in terms of like just the Detroit thing. But like I said, Tulsa had more of a presence in the second half. Meanwhile, there were some substitutions made about the 60th minute mark. Wilson Harris came in. Adrian Perez came in. I'm like, all right, this is where we start to this is where we kind of take the game back a little bit and we start burying the goals. But man, like the offense was just really not there that second half. And I don't really know why. And maybe it's just because of Tulsa. Like, I don't know, maybe they were being a little desperate. Maybe they made a few small adjustments that made a big difference. But again, like for as much more control that Tulsa had, or at least like being visible in the game, they didn't do a lot.
Yeah, City had 17 shots in the first half and only 7 in the second half.
Yeah, so
a big difference half to half.
Yeah, the second half got very like grindy. It was a lot less fun to watch.
Yeah,
but
I mean, Tulsa only had 5 shots, so just like nobody was shooting much in that second half.
It was getting physical. But I think the important thing here is that they got the job done. This is the second straight match where there's not been any shots on target. It was a really great defensive performance. There was a lot of good things in the first half, like offensively. Look, you're not going to go out there and just like murder these teams every game. And I know like the bar feels so high after the amount of times that they've done that. There would be probably some lessons learned on how that second half went, at least on the offensive side of things. Well, but other than that, like again, that 1-0 score line doesn't do it full justice. Like it was a good outing for Louisville City, just not like as high scoring as we're accustomed to.
I think it bodes well for them because you can't just blow everybody out every game, and especially when it comes playoff time, you have to have the ability to grind out.
For sure.
One of these games where there's not a lot of shots going on. So to hold on to that lead and be able to just sort of grind out the win, I think bodes really well for them in the playoffs, because that's the kind of game you have to play in the playoffs a lot of times. You're not gonna teams get tight, game plans get a lot more conservative. You don't have as much space to run up and down the field in the playoffs generally. So you got to get some of these, just like get your goal and then grind for the rest of the match, wins.
So like in terms of like, we were complaining about the Bay game and some of the effort components on that one. Like I was really impressed and happy with just how bloodthirsty that they came out in the Tulsa one. It's not like they were lacking that bloodthirstiness in that second half. It's just that the opposition made themselves a little bit more known. But like think back to last season and all the problems that they had. Do you think that they go out there and put on that performance of 2023 team? I don't. Like, so I think that was a good one. I mean, obviously they were playing like still trying to win that regular season title. They would secure home field playoffs with the win there, which they ultimately did do. But you could see why there could be good excuses where if they weren't playing 110% away at Tulsa, who's not really a particular threat to Louisville City themselves. You're in a pretty comfortable table standing, all things considered. But I don't think anybody for a second acted in that way. And that's very much what we've seen most of the season and what Coach Cruz, I know, has been striving for with this team. So it was good to see that sustained. So again, I think it was a good outing. It's just that 1-0 just doesn't fully, shout that from the mountaintops.
Did we mention so just Morris got subbed in and subbed out in the same game? Did you see?
Yeah. That was
there an injury there, or that's something that stood out to me looking at things. I was curious what was going on.
It actually very much
caught us. You think
it caught us off
Coach
guard.
Cruz just wanted to change it up for the end?
We didn't actually see it on the broadcast. We're in regular communications with Jonathan Lintner during the games. He'll send us like some of the fun facts and stuff so we can talk about them on the broadcast, like when there's like, like when we've had the records or some sort of streak or something like that going. And he was the one that told us, I didn't realize that Jake Morris had gotten subbed off after having been subbed on earlier, which I thought was really strange. And I was under the impression it was injury related at first. But I actually don't know if that's the case. And I've not heard one way or another. He wasn't exactly like jumping off the paper. So maybe it was like tactical play related. You just to your point, you just normally don't see somebody subbed on mid game and then subsequently subbed back off. Usually if you see that, it's an injury, but not always. So
yeah, sometimes it's a tactical shift. Like sometimes you change formations and take a different player on.
Yeah. So I don't know what that was about, but Dylan Maris came into his place. So, if you think about
which makes me think it might have been a tactical thing, because that is like a little bit of a formation change.
Exactly. That's what I was going to get to, is maybe they're trying to go for it a little bit more and finally get that second goal to put the game away. But I don't have any further clarity on that one. So just kind of the best guesses there. It is worth pointing out with Tulsa. So Dom was not in the lineup at all. I don't think that the loan contract allowed for that. Both the Sebastian and Santiago Sanchez were on the lineup, with Santiago being the younger one who we're not as familiar with because he didn't get into the first team setup with Louisville City. He did come into the match.
Okay.
And I mean, 16-year-old, he held his own. I thought it was nice. Interesting move because he came in the 84th minute. I mean, they were still in that game. All they had to do is bag one goal, and all of a sudden you got a tie ball game, and they could take every point that they can. So I'm like, oh, you're going to put in a 16-year-old in this moment, but he looked all right. So maybe I'm sleeping on the kid a little bit, but anyway, just thought it was worth noting some of those familiar faces. And if you look through their lineup, Tulsa's hadn't really done that before because I hadn't played them. A lot of guys who haven't been in the USL before. So I think that's another factor of the game, is that a lot of these guys are playing against guys they've not really interacted with. I mean, some of them have, you have Swahe, you have Patrick Segrist was on their team. Andrew Booth was with the Battery for a little while. I mean, there's some guys, but a lot of these guys have they're younger guys that have been part of MLS 2 setups, and not like the USL ones, like the whole MLS Next different league sort of thing. So that's another factor, because so often it's just you're playing the same guys on different teams. It's a lot of intermingling. So another little caveat to that. But all in all, again, It was a good night. Not going to be one that fans are going to be talking about for years to come, but it was a good result and continuation of that march forward for that regular season title. Hey, and we clinched the home playoffs. So thank God. I was so nervous that we wouldn't get to play a home playoff game this year. Sarcasm. Fucking course we were.
We have 7 games left. I mean, they're sitting in very good position right now.
Oh, they're so good. Yeah. And
they haven't gotten the table talk yet.
Yeah, I was gonna, no, that's a good segue because our buddies, the Charleston Battery, just took a nice L, and they're about to play the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and that will be fun. That hopefully, you know what, a draw.
Yeah,
let's get a draw. I don't want either of them to have 3 points
over Charleston right now.
Yeah, we're in a really good spot. Like, we have to really fuck up to not get the regular season title at this point. I feel like I say that pretty loosely, but it's as comfortable as you could reasonably expect.
I mean, I think Charleston's basically the only team that could even possibly catch them.
Yeah, they're
and they've got 2 games in hand against Charleston, so that like Charleston's 6 points back, but like Tampa Bay in 3rd place is 16 points back. They're like they're not making up 16 points in 7 games.
Yeah.
And then in the Western Conference, like New Mexico is 11 points back right now with 7 games left. So I mean, it's like it's not been clinched, but Charleston's the only one who has even a shot at being able to catch them.
So Charleston's remaining schedule looks like this: they play the Rowdies, then they play Detroit, but then from there on, it's, for lack of a better term, garbage. They're playing the Riverhounds, Rhode Island, and Loudoun. I mean, all teams with some level of redeemable qualities, but you know, they're teams you would expect Charleston to beat. It's these next 2 that are going to be real opportunities for them to miss and not get the job done. Meanwhile, Little City we go away to Detroit, home against Memphis, home against Miami, away against Indy, home against Tampa, away to San Antonio, and home against Phoenix. So a couple interesting ones in there, but by and large, I'm seeing 3s. You know,
I mean,
I think they get job done against most of those teams
this year.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Miami, okay. San Antonio and Phoenix aren't particularly strong. Aside from Detroit, playing Indy and Tampa are the most interesting. You could make a case for Memphis. We're in a good spot.
I mean, as good of a spot as they could really realistically be in with 7 games left. Like that, it is the regular season title is theirs to lose right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel great about where the team is. You know,
where are they in the power rankings? Because that's what really matters.
Oh, I stopped looking at these.
Did they get knocked down a couple spots for only having a 1-0 victory?
Fucking probably. Well, no, because the Battery lost, so they don't have anybody to put ahead of them.
Yeah, but was it like a good loss? Like the kind of loss you can move up with?
Well, I don't think any loss is a good loss when you're the ones chasing the other team on the table. So I don't care what those nerds at the USL think. We good. Yeah, no, we're in a good spot.
Does Backyard do USL power rankings?
Yeah, because that's John Morrissey's, and he does them much more logically.
Those are the ones I would care about. Yeah, they're still in first in the power rankings. So
yeah, he believes in Louisville City. I know that. But the injury list, like for Louisville City, aside from potentially adding Aid McFadden on there pending his head status, it's just Ombi and Jorge. Who Ombi's been on there, and Jorge we know is going to remain.
They've coped with. I mean, that's both players that have been out for a while, so it's not. You got to change something up. And McFadden, like that's. You don't want anybody to get hurt, but that's the position. Like if you, that's the position you would most be okay with having an injury at for them.
He's been so good though. You just wouldn't really want to see him out of the mix. So we'll stink a little bit. He's going to be missing Detroit. Like if he's missing something like Miami, it's like, oh, who cares? We could play our academy kids and probably beat them. Like
Has
Miami's bad.
Manning made it into a game yet? I noticed he was on the bench for the Tulsa game, but he didn't make it in.
He has not. Yeah, he has not yet. I kind of thought we might see him in the Tulsa one towards the end, but ultimately it was McCabe who came in, which honestly, like, great choice to see out a game.
Yeah.
Not McCabe, like
Really
at this,
nice.
particularly at this stage of his career and with how crowded the roster is, like if you're going to be like he, I think he's found his specialty this season. Like you need to see a game out, like get a guy who can do everything and manage the ref and all the other tomfoolery that could otherwise derail things, you know?
Get a little of that dark magic in there.
God, I'm going to be so sad the day he retires.
Whew.
You know what? No, I'm not going to be sad. I'm going to be happy that it happened.
I'm happy. It's Mr. Louisville City. It's our Iron Man.
Love it. So, yeah, that was most of my thoughts on that match and kind of where they stand. You know, it's on to the next one. It's interesting though, the game away at Detroit, it's at 3:00 midday game. Yeah. Don't really see that very often, do you?
I mean, I do, as a father, I love midday games now.
Yeah, I mean, I like when it gets mixed up every once in a while. I don't hate it. So I'm sure that there's going to be a contingent of Louisville City fans going up to Hamtramck, Michigan. I learned how I always just called it Hamtramck because that's how I thought it was like said. Like that's how it looked like it was written. Hamtramck, I learned. That's how it's pronounced. Anyway, hope we kicked their teeth in because their fans suck.
What if we brought an entire section of away fans in Dan Flash's shirts?
I told you about that when I went up there.
Just to try to distract the team.
It's so expensive because the patterns are so complicated. Yeah. So I don't think we talked about this like on the radio or on the podcast. I know I told you, but I went up to Detroit actually a few weeks ago, went to like a Tigers game, hung out with some people. And I specifically wore my, I think you should leave like Dan Flash's like polo out and about in Detroit because I felt like I was praying so hard I'd run into Tim Robinson. Man, that would have made my life. I did not though. I went to a speakeasy tiki bar.
Spots, see if you can find them.
Drove by some. I didn't see him there. Honestly, Detroit's actually kind of cool, like city. I won't lie. Yeah. And I get their fans a little bit more because the whole like everybody hates this thing is like a whole Detroit thing apparently, which I did not realize. Like I literally saw several people with like Detroit versus everybody shirts. So they very much like have this like cultural like chip on their shoulder that expands beyond Detroit city. So I understand them more. Doesn't mean I like them any better. But I'm like, okay.
People in Detroit are what people think people in Philadelphia are. But like I would say Philadelphia mistakenly has the reputation that Detroit like actually lives up
to. Philadelphia threw batteries at Santa Claus. I mean, they're pretty legit terrible people. I'm not a big fan of the Philadelphians or the massholes as they're called, the Boston people. We need to get
we need also a city that's earned
we need USL teams in both of those markets. We need a few more heels in the mix. You know, it's too face heavy in the USL. We're getting really off track.
It'd be nice if we put like, because I think that actually is an opportunity for the league because the Boston MLS team plays pretty far outside of actual Boston. And so I think there is a little bit of an opening there to have a team that actually is in Boston.
A team that does not play at Gillette.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I didn't want to throw a number out there, but I know it's miles outside of town.
Yeah, it's not the closest thing in the world. That'd be cool. I wouldn't mind going there. I'm excited about the Brooklyn team joining next year, though, simply so I can have an away day to go to New York.
I want to go to an away game in Brooklyn so bad.
I'm obsessed with New York, so I'm excited about it. All right. Well, Zach, is there anything else that you were wanting to hit on before we wind this bad boy down and let people move on?
That's all the soccer stuff I have.
I don't
Benton, do you
think
have
there's
any
any additional news.
recommendations for the people to leave them on?
This is going to be a repeat,
Okay.
but I've borrowed my sister-in-law's wetback again, so I'm back on the wetback train still. Get you a wetback.
So your recommendation is cleaning your house.
No, I'm not recommending cleaning your house. I'm recommending use a wetback because it's satisfying. I don't like cleaning at all, but the wetback, that's different. That's a different experience. I'm behind that one. Big fan.
It's just a vacuum with more steps, though. It's
No,
the
it's
same
not.
experience as
No,
the other
it's like
vacuum.
mopping. You know how much crap I get up? How disgusting, like the water is, and you just like in some of these spots I'm hitting, you wouldn't even think. It's incredible. Like we have the Swiffer thing where you put the wet pads on it. We're probably going to get all this edited out just because we're very off track right now. But like the wet pads, like that you put on just the regular push Swiffer thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so much worse to do that versus the wetback.
Yeah, I mean, wetbacks are great.
It's good. So that's my recommendation. Zach, what is your recommendation for the people?
I read a really good book on our trip. We had a flight there and flight back, and then I was trying to like not just sit and watch TV when we had free time in the hotel. So I tried to do some reading, especially since we had Chuck in our room, so I had to be quiet late in the evening. So I read If This Book Exists, You're in the Wrong Universe by Jason Pargin, who's one of my favorite authors. He used to, way back in the good old days of the internet, he was a writer for Cracked.com, which is like a website I really enjoyed. But he's he has been writing kind of like comedy horror novels for a while now. He one of them got made into a movie. John Dies at the End was his first novel that I like a lot. This is like in that series, but he does a good job. You could just jump in with any book. Like they're very serialized, so you sort of they're all kind of their own individual adventures, even though the characters are in multiple ones. But that's the most recent one in that series he's put out, and I finally had a chance to read it, and I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of, I think it might not be my favorite one in the series. If you're looking to jump in, This Book Is Full of Spiders is my favorite one. That's like the second one in that series that he did. But this was probably, you mentioned that one before. Yeah, I think I've recommended that one before. But this one is probably my favorite after that one. It's like, so it was really good. He has a new book coming out in like 2 weeks that I've already pre-ordered. That's unrelated to all these. It's a new series, so I will probably be recommending another Jason Pargin book in a couple weeks. But this one was really good.
Well, very good. So there you have it, people. Some recommendations for you, and it's good to be back. Sorry we missed 2 weeks. We missed you guys. We missed being.
Sorry that I had a great vacation and then got sick, but we're back. We're in the home stretch now. It's all soccer all the time now.
Unless we don't have a 6-point weekend, then we're just going to take unexplicably.
And then we're done
unexplicably off. Yeah, we're quitting. Soccer's the worst sport. Just kidding.
We had a 0-point weekend that might break us.
Yeah, those are always hard to do.
Yeah.
All right, I'm letting these people go. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out all the other great work at the State of Louisville Network. They're doing an awesome job over there. We'll catch you guys next week. Take care.
Bye, all.